Have you ever felt like you're running on someone else's software? You know, that feeling that there's a glitch in the system that runs our lives, a deep, quiet sense that something is just off? Today, we're going to dig in. We're going to look for the source code of that feeling, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to rewrite it.
Man, that really hits home, doesn't it? That constant feeling of being drained, that background hum of anxiety. It's not some personal failing. The idea here is that it's something much deeper. It's your soul, your very essence, pushing back and rejecting the terms of a contract you never even remember signing. It's a system error, not a user error.
And that is the big question. If we are living under the rules of some invisible contract, then step one is to actually read the fine print. And step two, find the exit clause. So let's start by figuring out what this glitch in the system really is. All right, section 1, the glitch in the machine. Before you can break out of the program, you have to realize you're in one. This feeling of burnout, this widespread exhaustion, it isn't an accident. It's a feature. Let's take a look at how this system actually sees us. Okay, this sounds harsh, I know, but it's a really crucial perspective for understanding the glitch. Think about it. The systems we're all a part of, the economy, social media, you name it, they're often designed to see us not as unique, messy, beautiful human beings, but as predictable data points. Our time, our attention, our hopes, it all gets quantified, turned into raw material for a machine that runs on us. So here are the terms of service, laid out bare. It's a perfect closed loop, right? You trade your most precious, non-renewable asset, your time, for money. Then you're encouraged to take on debt, which means you're locked in. You have to keep trading your time. And the whole thing is held together by what you could call digital leashes, those endless subscriptions and services that mean we're always renting, never really owning.
Okay, so moving on to section 2, decoding the program. If you want to break a contract, you first have to understand the language it's written in. So now we're going to look at the code itself, the tools and the patterns used to build this whole system of control and keep it running.
Now that's a pretty provocative thought. The argument goes like this. From a very young age, institutions like school aren't just about educating us. They're about conditioning us. They reward us for conforming, for following the rules, for fitting into a neat little box. It's less about helping you become who you are and a whole lot more about shaping you into what the system needs you to be. So how exactly is this influence coded into our interactions? Well, one really powerful tool is called Neuro-Linguistic Programming, or NLP. The easiest way to think about it is like reverse engineering human communication. NLP studies how really effective people, therapists, master negotiators, top-tier salespeople, use language, and then it breaks down their techniques into repeatable patterns that basically anyone can learn. Check this out. It's a subtle shift in language, but it completely changes the power dynamic. On the left, you've got a simple question. It invites a yes or a no. You have a choice. But on the right, that's an NLP pattern called mind reading. It doesn't ask you, it tells you. It presumes to know what you're thinking, framing agreement as something that's already happened. It just kind of bypasses the whole debate.
And you can see how language itself can be weaponized. These are just a few examples of logical fallacies, but you should think of them as bugs in our mental operating system that can be exploited. For instance, the bandwagon fallacy. Well, everyone thinks so it must be true. That's all about social pressure. And that actions have consequences one is really tricky. It frames a punishment someone imposes on you as if it were just a natural law of physics. These aren't just simple mistakes in logic, they're tools.
So once you start to see the code, once you see the matrix, what happens next? You naturally start looking for exploits, right? For ways around the firewall. That brings us to section 3, finding the backdoor. This is all about the search for hidden knowledge, for alternative paths, for people who just don't trust the official story anymore. And this is the crucial point. It's not about learning these techniques to become a manipulator yourself. It's about developing a kind of mental self-defense. It's about recognizing the patterns of influence so you can protect your own mind, build a better BS detector, and make truly conscious choices.
And once you start questioning that mainstream narrative, where do you go for answers? For a lot of people, this journey leads them down some pretty unconventional and sometimes controversial rabbit holes. They start looking for explanations in all the places the system tells them not to. Now, as an example of just how far out these explanations can go, one source we looked at puts forward this really detailed theory linking a ton of our problems, both societal and personal, to parasites. It claims that these things can be activated by toxins, that they can actually influence our thoughts, and that ancient ideas about demons were really just descriptions of parasitic infections. Now, we're presenting this as a clear example of the kind of alternative frameworks people start to explore, not as a statement of fact. In another direction, some people are searching for what they call medicinal freedom. They're frustrated with a rigid, one-size-fits-all healthcare system, so they're turning to natural alternatives like kratom to manage things like chronic pain or anxiety themselves. It's a way of trying to reclaim sovereignty over their own bodies. But what if the ultimate hack isn't external? What if the escape hatch isn't out there in the system, but in here, inside our own heads? What if breaking the program really means upgrading our own hardware? Welcome to Section 4, Rewiring the Brain. Just look at this parallel. It's incredible. On the left, one of humanity's greatest achievements, the internet. And on the right, one of nature's most ancient forms of intelligence, the mycelial network of fungi. They're both decentralized, resilient, information-sharing networks. And the sources point out that this isn't a coincidence. This network design is everywhere, in our own brains and even in the cosmic web of dark matter. It seems nature perfected network intelligence billions of years before we ever logged on. And that brings us to this fascinating and, pretty controversial idea called the stoned ape theory. The theory suggests that the massive leap forward in human consciousness wasn't just some random accident. The idea is that our early ancestors stumbled upon psilocybin mushrooms, and that this experience essentially triggered a massive neurological upgrade. It boosted their ability to see patterns, and it jump-started the very things that make us human, like complex language and art. And here, the famous mycologist Paul Stamets connects that theory to modern science. He talks about improving our neuroscape, the whole landscape of our brain's connections. Through neurogenesis, that's the birth of new brain cells, and neuroplasticity, the ability to form new connections, the idea is that some of these compounds in nature don't just give you a temporary experience. They might actually help physically rebuild your brain's architecture. The neurons literally shake hands and create new pathways.
And this brings us to the final critical showdown, Section 5, Natural versus Artificial. We've looked at the rigid, rule-based program of artificial systems, and we've looked at the adaptive, networked intelligence of the natural world. This isn't just an interesting comparison. It's a choice between two totally different operating systems for life itself.
Let's break it down. On one side, you've got artificial intelligence. Its logic is all based on rules. If this, then that. Its goal is to predict and prescribe the most efficient action based on the data it's fed. But then you have natural intelligence, like a mycelial network. It's adaptive. Its goal isn't just raw efficiency. It's resilience and symbiosis, working together. It learns by self-organizing, and its core value, its very reason for being, is interconnection. And this quote just perfectly sums up the difference. When an AI was apparently asked about one of the most fundamentally human things we do, a random act of kindness, it was completely stumped. From its purely logical, transactional worldview, it makes zero sense. Why would you do something for nothing? The AI's response is chilling because it reveals the absolute blind spot of a system built only on efficiency. It just doesn't understand. So that's where we land with this question. We're surrounded every day by an artificial system, one designed for control and predictability. But at the same time, we are a part of a natural system, one based on connection, adaptation, and wisdom. Moving forward, the choice of which operating system we decide to run, which one we trust, and which one we build our lives around, well, that might just be the most important choice we have to make.